Hi, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Plymouth. My name is Derek Brindizzi. I'm your town manager and your host for today's episode. With today's episode, we have a special guest with us, Nick Faella, who is our superintendent of both parks and forestry. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
So thanks for being here. So, Nick, we haven't had the opportunity for you and I to discuss all the things that are going on in the Parks Division over the past year. For the new guests, typically what I try to explain is that what I've been using this forum for is to try to get good information out. So there's a lot of great things that are happening, especially with the Department of Public Works, and there's a lot of projects that are taking place this summer that I really think folks at home really need to understand and get to know more about you and more about the work that you do. In particular, last night, the Select Board had an agenda on, had an item on the agenda for a DPW update. And our acting DPW director, Shirley Scarzy, she provided that update. And during her 45-minute discussion presentation, she goes, I could spend hours talking about all the different projects. And so certainly the board didn't have hours. So again, this is an opportunity to talk more about specifically what's going on in the parks. But before we jump into the projects, Nick, let's talk a little bit about yourself. You've been in this role for how long?
About 4 years now.
About 4 years,
Yep.
Okay. So I'm sure many people in the community know who you are then if you've been doing it for 4 years. So
Oh, definitely. I'm
fair to
very,
say?
very involved. Yeah, I've lived here my whole life, 35 years. I've been with the town for 10 years and in this role for 4 years. So I've met and worked with a lot of people.
So you've been working with the town for 10 years. Have you always worked in parks? Where did you begin?
I started in the cemetery for about a year,
Okay.
and then I moved into parks after that. My background before this was landscape design in the Pine Hills, and it just kind of worked for me to move into the parks, and I fell in love with it, learned it really well, and became the superintendent.
Yeah, that's great. And so you said you're born and raised in town?
Yep.
Went through all the Plymouth public school system?
Yep. Plymouth South High School, South Elementary, I'm in Cedarville now with my wife and my 8-year-old.
Nice.
It's nice to live here.
Yeah, no, it's a great community, and I always talk about my first tour of duty here as the assistant town manager, and how I was so excited to come back to be the town manager just because I love the community.
Yeah.
It's very different than growing up in Central Mass and City of Worcester, so I appreciate the beaches and the ponds and things of that nature. So speaking directly about your day-to-day responsibilities, how many staff are in the Parks Division?
So the parks, we have 11 full-time employees, and we have up to 5 seasonal employees during the summertime to help us keep the beaches clean and keep areas weeded and stuff like that. But
So let's talk about that for a second, because I think that's a little eye-opening, right? So you have 11 full-time employees, and you ramp up, we'll call it, for 5 additional seasonal employees. And that's a lot of work for only 16 employees during the summer.
Yeah, right.
And I have to say, because I think I'm part of the problem, like we put a lot of, when I say we, the select board, myself, and maybe even residents, put a lot of pressure on the parks staff because we want our parks to be clean. We want them to be well kept. We want them to be mowed on a regular basis. So can you talk about the workload of your staff?
Sure, yeah. We have 31 parks, 12 playgrounds, over 20 infields that we maintain, keep clean. Some of those are in forges, which are contracted, but basketball courts, not enough basketball courts, soccer fields. It's a lot of work, and when we get weather like we have now, where we get these downpours for about an hour and then it's 100 degrees, everything is growing. The infields get weeds, the landscape get weeds, everything. The bump outs down by East Bay get loaded. You need pruning. We fall behind with mowing, but we try really hard. My crew's great. They work really hard, and so we do the best we can.
And was it fair to say that's more or less a 7-day operation during the summer months?
Absolutely. So we're in 7 days a week, whether it's to pick up litter on a busy weekend or to get as much mowing, landscape maintenance done as we can.
Well, I can tell you, I've had the opportunity to live downtown for the past year plus, and this summer, like, walking downtown, putting the Water Street sewer interceptor project aside, I mean, everything looks great. The mulch beds look great, the flowers look great. It's been well maintained. So
Thank you.
And then, as you know, and we'll talk probably a little bit about, if we have time, about the graffiti stuff, and you being the chair of the graffiti task force. But even that's something that everyone in our community, they see the graffiti, and they see the aesthetics of our community, and they want the best. And you guys have certainly been able to do that. But you said 31 parks for that many employees. That seems like you guys need more staff.
Yeah, and some of the parks, they're small satellite parks like Whiting Street or Depot, but still they have landscape beds. They need to be maintained. We can't just let these little parks go. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a big workload. So
how is it when you get a special request? Like I just saw the pictures the other day about the 1749 Courthouse Museum. You guys went in there. There was requests, I think, by the museum committee to prune the tree that seemed like it was overgrowing into the building. This is a building that's almost 300 plus years old, right?
Yeah.
And then I saw what you were able to do with that mulch bed.
Yeah, so we do get a lot of special requests, and sometimes people might not realize the workload that we're dealing with already routinely, but they take it on as a fun project. We were out there yesterday. I was down there with them for probably half the day, just making sure it came out to the way that I expected it to, and we had fun. It's tough, but if we're not in one place, we're in another, and we're moving, we're working hard.
Well, I can tell you that, at least in that project, I certainly appreciate it, because I've met with the museum committee. They're really excited about the American Cruise Lines that'll be coming in at the end of August. And the reason why they're excited about it is because the cruise line, the niche for the cruise line is historical tours. And so their hope is that they can showcase the museum when the cruise lines come in, and they want them to participate in the tours, not only going to Burial Hill and to the Pilgrim Hall Museum, but they want them to come to 1749. So just, that little beautification is going to go a long way when we have, hundreds of new visitors here, coming through the cruise line. So again, I appreciate your efforts on that. Sure. But let's get into some of the projects. So this is a project that you and I have talked about a couple of times over the past year, and it's a project that I remember as the assistant town manager meeting with Ted Bubbins on, and I think I'm going with the Brewster Stairs project.
Yeah.
So I remember Ted and we were meeting with the building owner, the restaurant owner of, is that Straka? Strega, yeah. And trying to work out an agreement to provide access to the park. And I come back, 5+ years later, and here we are. You guys are actually moving forward with the project. So, for everybody who's paying attention at home, can you describe what that project, what it is, what the timeline is going to be, and then really what the goal is of those improvements?
Sure. Yeah. To reiterate what you were saying, when I came here, that was something Ted Bubbins had started. It went out to bid at one point. I think it was 2017. And there wasn't enough money set aside. The bids came in too high. So when I came in, I also had the job cost estimate done by an engineering firm, and the bids came back too high. So now we finally have enough money to get it done. It's currently out to bid. The pre-bid meeting is August 3rd, and then the bid opening, I believe, is the 17th. And from there, I'm certain we have enough funds to complete the project, and the project is going to be continuing the stairs in the pathway from where it ends now, bypassing the Strega building and going directly up to Main Street Extension.
So this is coming from Brewster, right?
Brewster Gardens, right by the Maiden Pond there.
So it's just so folks, who are like, what are we talking about, right? So we're basically talking about cutting the guardrail, right, on Main Street Extension, right, and then constructing. Is it going to be stairs or a walkway? Yeah,
it's going to be a double granite stairway that goes, like you said, cuts into that handrail there, which is actually state-owned, so that took some time to get permits from them. But it's going to match the rest of the stairs that go down to the Maiden Pond with the nice granite. It's going to give it more of a historic look.
And so again, so when we think of access to Brewster Gardens, you can access, which I think most people typically access Brewster Gardens from Water Street, right?
Yes.
But now you'll have another access point at Main Street Extension when this project is complete, and then David Gould is working on a project, the bypass project, that will enhance the existing access, which is over by the temple across the street from there. There's an access point there as well. So, and then you have the far end as well by the Jenny Grist Mill. So when your project is complete, we'll have basically 4 access points, 2 at the further ends, and then 2 in the middle of the park, so people can get in and out of Brewster Gardens area. So, I mean, between this project and the bypass project, I mean, Brewster Gardens is already beautiful, but it's going to just really enhance that even more. So
yeah, it'll allow the people to go straight up to the residents. The restaurants, and just have easy access to get up there quicker, which will be nice.
It will be great. So so that project, when do you think we're going to break ground on that project?
I'm hoping the end of the summer.
The end of the summer. Okay.
Try to.
And what do you think the timeline is on that project?
Depending on if we get it done before the winter, which I'm expecting to. It could be as early as the beginning of the winter.
Really?
Yeah.
Good. So we could see something by the end of the year.
I'm hoping so. If not, I'm being a little optimistic. If not, it will be in the spring.
Right. Okay, good. So, moving on to other things that are going on in your world. Most recently, you led the efforts to transform the Allerton Street Playground, right? And that is, I think, the last of 7 playgrounds that have been renovated in the last how many years?
4 years.
4 years.
Yep.
So let's talk about, before we get to Allerton, because that's the one I think I have most knowledge on.
Sure.
Can you just kind of describe the projects, the previous 6 projects to that?
Yeah, so we tried to step back and look at the geographics of the town and decide which playgrounds we were going to renovate. So we have everything down from all the way down south. We have Elmer Raymond, which we did a whole new, there's kind of 2 playground sections there. They're all ADA compliant, poured in place rubber surfacing, ADA equipment. So then we can move up, and we worked on Manomet Recreation Area. That was a complete refab, redesign.
Okay.
That's actually got a really cool ADA compliant, fully ADA compliant piece, which is, it's this globe that sits ground level, and you could wheel a wheelchair in, or you could be in a wheelchair and be up next to it, and you can actually spin it, and it's like a merry-go-round. So they can control it from the outside, or they can control it from the inside.
Really?
It was a small footprint, so we put a piece called, I think it was called the Venti in, and it's got 20 different play structures all in one. So that was a really cool project. Moving up, we did Forges Field, and then we did Seaver Field, West Rec, and of course Nelson, which is our most popular playground.
Yeah, how long ago was Nelson?
Nelson was about 3 years ago.
Okay, yeah. I didn't realize that. But originally, Nelson had was it a rubber surface for the spray park? And then they.
Yeah, so I believe it was a rubber surface, and since then it has been done in a textured concrete that it's durable and it's easy to clean. The amount of play we get on that, I feel that the rubber would get torn up pretty good. But that is a very popular splash pad. We have hundreds of kids there every day.
Yeah, it's very popular. I've taken my grandkids over there, and so very popular, especially on the weekends. I mean, you were saying the playground area itself, though, is just a few years old.
Yes.
Wow.
Right.
Okay, that's great. And so that's 6 playgrounds, and honestly, I really appreciate the investment in playgrounds. All the cities and towns that I've worked for in the past, one thing that's often overlooked are playgrounds. I feel like a lot of them have like 1980s vintage play equipment.
Right.
And you can definitely measure a community by their investment in playgrounds. And I was not aware until you had mentioned to me that after we completed the Allerton Street playground that you guys had already completed 6 other playgrounds. So that's great. So let's talk about Allerton. You and I started working with the select board on thinking about how to reinvent the Allerton Street play area. This came on the response to neighbors in the area that have stated that this was taken over, by dog owners, and it became the town's only de facto dog park, right? And so I guess what it did, I think, not so much. I think the dog issue, the dog owner issue, only thing that really did is it was shining a bright light on the poor condition of the park, and the fact that putting the dog issue aside, we had to do something for this playground. This was an area that, like everything else, it just, it's seen its days. It was probably about, 25 years old, I'd imagine, the play equipment. So can you talk about what you guys have been able to do?
Sure, yeah. So the idea of transforming that playground was to just bring it back to a charming neighborhood playground just outside the downtown area for residents to enjoy, but also for maybe people that are visiting to take a stroll from the downtown area. It's right there. So what we did was, first thing we did was we regraded the entire park because there were holes everywhere. Then we moved the footprint from the playground, closer to the water so that it's further away from the main road. We loamed everything, and we added all ADA compliant surfacing, equipment. We actually fenced it in case there are children with the habit of running off, just to keep them safe within the play structure area. We currently have ADA access bringing you to that playground, and pretty soon we're going to have ADA parking as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and we're going to add some benches, picnic tables. We're going to add a little more design to the rubber. There's going to be kind of some more cool features going on in the rubber. And once that's all done, we actually really want to have an official ribbon cutting for the park.
Yeah, that would be great. I can tell you that that park has received a lot of attention to the point where the select board keep asking me, when are we having a ribbon cutting? They're really excited about, I guess, taking a problem and turning it into a positive.
Right, it's beautiful.
And I have, to be honest with you, I've taken my two grandchildren there on a couple occasions, and they love it, But I do agree. You had some parks, some benches, and some picnic tables. I mean, it's really going to be a family-oriented place. And I was talking to Ann Slessor, the rec director. I thought she had said that I think this fall she's going to be running some soccer programs up there. Have you heard that?
Indirectly.
Okay. Yeah.
Which,
So
it
seems like, at least for young age soccer, that's perfect because they don't need a full-size field, and you can probably run a few games, simultaneously up in that space up there because there's ample space up there.
Yeah, and it's finally a beautiful flat field again.
Yeah,
which
good.
Will be great.
So again, kudos to you and your team for getting that done. Moving on, so we got Nelson on one side of Water Street. We have Allerton that's sitting on top of the hill, and then we have the big one that's coming next, Stevens. And I think that'll make a nice little, triangle of renovated new parks in the downtown area. And we had David Gould on the show not that long ago talking a little bit about Stevens. But can you give us a brief update of where we stand with Stevens? I know that's something that you've been paying close attention to the last 6 months.
Sure, yeah. So the Stevens Field bid is open. It closes actually a week from Thursday. It got pushed back a week. So that's really exciting to see, who we'll be working with. We hope to break ground at the end of August, early September.
Okay.
And we want to plan to have the park open and ready to go for the 4th of July, 2024.
For the 4th, wow. So that'll be, are we talking maybe a 9-month construction period?
That's what we're hoping for.
Wow, that's ambitious. Again, that'll be, we have to thank not only the Community Preservation Committee for their support, but certainly the town meeting members for supporting that. That was over a $4 million project.
Yeah,
so
big team effort.
Yeah, and it's going to take, it's going to be another gem, certainly in the community, but certainly downtown as well, given what's going on in Nelson and now Allerton. So looking forward to that project. Before we jump over, and we have about 9 minutes left, before we jump over to forestry, I know that, because we're talking about all summer projects, but you guys get involved in the ice skating rink, don't you?
Yeah,
what
we do.
Do you play with that?
So with the ice skating rink, normally we try to move it around to different areas, different parts of town. I think we were planning on putting it back at Stevens Field this past year, but we didn't get any cold enough. The temperatures weren't cold enough.
Sure.
So when we fill it up, nowhere is perfectly level. So one end might be more full than the other, which causes thinner ice on one side. So we weren't able to set it up this year, but we've got some ideas coming for this coming winter. I think we're going to try to get the library to have us put it out front.
I've heard rumors about the library. I thought you were going to keep it top secret, but I have heard rumors that, I mean, the library has that great front lawn. It looks flat, at least from the parking lot. Plenty of parking. One thing I think we should, as you guys start to brainstorm the best idea, I think we should probably think about some type of refrigeration unit to try to keep it frozen. I know in downtown Boston they have a unit there that keeps it frozen through the winter months. It's less reliable on the weather. Especially with climate change, we've seen that trying to maintain those freezing temperatures can be a challenge, consistently throughout the winter. So as you guys think about that, keep us in mind. We'll be, happy to support those efforts. Yeah. So let's shift over to your role as the forestry superintendent. Now, is that just a fancy term for tree warden?
No. So a tree warden and a forestry superintendent, they do go hand in hand. But so a tree warden, we oversee the care, maintenance, and removal of public shade trees in accordance to Chapter 87, Section 2. You can't cut trees down without talking to me first. There are a couple ways you could do removals, whether it's a tree hearing, or a utility company. That's Chapter 87, Section 14. They can basically do whatever they want. Or if it's a tree of risk, we can remove it. But I'm the one who determines. So you can't cut any trees down throughout town if you think that you can move that to add a driveway or something like that. You can't do it. So that's the role of the tree warden.
Gotcha. Okay.
My role as a forestry superintendent is basically keeping residents, visitors, anyone traveling on our 375 plus miles of roads safe. Removing risk trees, limbing, bringing clearance up to 14 feet, planting trees, that sort of thing. And I have a crew of 5 in my forestry division.
So your forestry division, most of these guys tree climbers, by certification?
So I have 2 tree climbers that are highly trained. And so one of them's a foreman, one of them's a lead man. And basically, we usually use our hydraulic bucket to do removals, but in some cases, like one example was a large hickory tree in the Vine Hill Cemetery had split, and it was about 70 feet up. And I went to look at it with my climber and the crew, and he got his harness out, started climbing up, and he did a great job. He had it down in like 2 hours. Wow. I think we had a $4,500 estimate from a tree company to go up and do that, and he went up and had it down on the ground on a Friday in just a couple hours. Wow. So yeah, they're pretty talented.
Well, yeah, no, and that's why I asked, because we never talk about those stories about a lot of our employees that have a lot of skill sets that, like you just pointed out, would have normally cost the town over $4,000 to take a tree down, and we just are lucky enough to have individuals who have that skill who can take it down and save our taxpayers thousands of dollars. Right. And you multiply that during the course of the year, you're talking probably tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Right. Yeah. So that would be our day-to-day operation. But after hours, after 3:30, I think I've received over 700 phone calls from PD. I've never missed a single one of them. And what will happen is they'll call me, say, 1 in the morning on a Tuesday night. We had someone hit a tree in a vehicle. I'll have to then call a crew and dispatch a crew to go out and respond, remove the tree. Of course, PD's there and whoever else needs to be there for authorities. That's another big part of the forestry division that people may not know about. But they're great. This crew, they come in every time I call them. Really? They're awesome. And if not, a Parks guy will step up because they're a great crew also. Right.
No, you've always spoken highly of your team, both in Parks and Forestry, and that's a lot to be said by you, because if you have bad morale, people don't answer the phone. But so I think they appreciate working with you. Definitely. And they'll run through a wall for you. So and I don't think our residents, that's part of why we have these conversations, because I personally don't think our residents realize the effort that goes into our work week, and I don't talk about myself, I talk about really, everybody, all of our front-facing individuals who are out there doing the work. So it's a lot that's happening. I think that it's important for people to realize that. One thing that I assume your forestry team does is I'll call it the planting of the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or the holiday tree.
Right.
In the next couple of minutes, can you describe what that process is like, finding the holiday tree, bringing it to town hall and setting that?
Yeah, sure. So the fourth floor usually puts something on Facebook that we're looking for a Christmas tree for someone to donate. But another route that we take is on a rainy day or something, or even throughout the year as they're working and they're driving by houses, they put their eye on a few select trees. And then we'll knock on the door, we'll ask if they're interested in donating their tree to be the whole town of Plymouth's celebration Christmas tree. Usually they get pretty excited. We offer to plant them like a Jap maple or something nice. We grind the stump, do everything nice for them. So from there we get a crane, and the crane will cut the tree down, the crane will lift it up, we'll put it on the back of a big flatbed. We'll have like 10 police officers for a half hour follow us to the location of the tree. This year it was at Town Hall. There we'll take the crane, put it in the ground, decorate it, and everyone's happy.
Yeah, no, well, again, I wanted you to explain that because, again, at the tree lighting event, everybody sees this massive tree and nobody understands how it got there, right? So it's really important that, it's you and your team for identifying the tree, taking care of the property owner for donating it. And I don't know if you guys know, but we should probably recognize these folks that are donating the tree to our tree lighting event so that they get some public recognition. So, but that's a really, that's again, really important service that you guys provide. Lastly, Tree City USA, what does that mean?
So Tree City USA is a movement. They make sure that the towns are doing everything they can do to promote shade trees, growing shade trees. Every year I fill out a large document or a survey that has how many trees do you plant, how many do you prune, what's your budget. It's like 10 pages long. And what happens is you submit that, and then they decide on whether or not you meet all of their expectations, and they'll name you a tree city. Plymouth has been a tree city for a consecutive 34 years.
Wow, okay.
And we're top 8 in the entire state as far as ranking.
Oh, that's interesting.
For how long we've been a tree city.
See, I didn't know that. I wonder how we can get more publicity around that.
Yeah.
Whether it's on social media or maybe just annually take it to the select board to do a proclamation that we're, again, 35 years in a row, Tree City USA. So again, that's really important for people to realize, because when you go to the downtown area, and I'm talking to Mark Rayla, climate resiliency plan, about this heat island effect, and one of the ways to mitigate that, is planting trees.
Right.
And that's something that we're really interested in doing in years to come, planting more trees in the downtown area. But Nick, we got to wrap up, and I appreciate your time with us. You got to come back, because I'm sure we could spend another half hour talking about other projects.
Got through half of it.
So again, exactly.
Just kidding.
So I thank you for coming, and thank you all for joining us on this episode. Until next time, please join us on our website at www.plymouth-ma.gov for more information, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.